I have no idea how to make an intro for a video. Do you like unicorns?
A barter was struck up by one of my teachers to make an art doll for his daughter for Christmas. In exchange, I would get a cool 2009 MacBook for my Frutiger Aero dreams, and his daughter would get a completely unique gift tailored to her. The props I was given were just a combination of a purple unicorn with darker hair and white highlights. My inspiration for the design came from the caged unicorn, Amalthea from The Last Unicorn, and I tried to stylistically take inspiration from Spirit. You'd think after watching that film almost every day when I was 5 would make me really good at drawing horses. No. And so, the concept art ended up looking like this. Now, before I go fully explaining my process, I have to tell you that I was mostly following the creation process of KP Creations. She's an incredible art doll maker, and her process is much more clean and effective than mine. Do not take this video as a tutorial. If anything, it's a great showcase of what not to do. I'll link KP's channel in the description if you want to see more of this, but actually on a professional level. Now on to the treacherous, hellish road that I walked upon to make this thing. I started with a ball of tinfoil and roughly shaped it into a horse's head shape. I'd attempted this before, but as you will find is a common occurrence within this project, I forgot to film. I didn't like it anyway. After the tinfoil was in the shape that I wanted, I laid a sheet of clay over the form and started looking at my references, sculpting and trying to get the basic look that I wanted. I took tiny clay balls that I pre-baked and painted a different color to help them stand out against the raw clay as eyes and inserted them into some indents I'd made with my sculpting tool. After that, I started fine-tuning the details and features like the smile and nostrils. After that, I baked it to save my progress. Here's what it looks like. The next day, I took both heads and started using some moldable plastic to make horns. You could ignore the other head. I abandoned it at this point in the project. You can get the plastic on Amazon and I think some art stores as well. Basically, it comes in little pellets and you put it in hot water till they turn clear. Then you sculpt with them and they harden into something that's still kind of flexible, which is perfect for the horn, because I don't want to break it later in the project or when it's being played with. So, after the horn was sculpted, I put a bit of fresh clay on the forehead and made an indent with the horn's base, so that after I bake it, it'll fit perfectly. You can see me for a second sculpting the ears, because they didn't take long, and here's what the final head sculpt looks like. Next on the docket is sculpting the unicorn's hooves, starting with a tinfoil base. I had to look up a lot of references for the shape and silhouette of these, and it was kind of difficult to get it where I wanted, let alone to get it to be consistent between all 4 hooves. I can definitely see why people prefer to digitally sculpt these and 3D print them. But for those of us who don't have access to that, this works just fine. After the hooves were baked and cooled down, I got out my armature wire and started on the skeleton for the doll. I pulled up a horse skeleton on my iPad to try to get the proportions right, but spoilers, it doesn't really end up being too accurate. But that's okay, maybe unicorns just look like that. I poke holes in the exposed tinfoil and fill them with hot glue before sticking the wires in and holding them until the glue cools. Because of the way I made the armature, it was a bit unsteady. I decided to start building the body by cutting up strips of quilt batting, and everything was going well until... After remembering how a camera works, I started securing the back legs onto the armature so that it wouldn't look too much like a strange worm. But then, as nobody expected... Alright, that bit's getting old fast. I was finally able to wrap the rest of the body with the batting and even film it! Great job! Once I was satisfied with the body, my phone ran out of battery, so I used my iPad to film me wrapping the tail, but overall this project was still going really well. The doll moved the way I wanted it to, and the head only came off a few times. I moved my filming setup downstairs and primed the head and hooves off camera, intentionally. Because it's kind of boring, and if you're clicking on the video, you probably know already how priming works. But if you don't, Priming is basically prepping a surface to take paint better than it would before. My clay is pretty smooth, so paint wouldn't stick well. Priming it makes the paint job much easier. You can see me mixing and applying colors on screen right now, making sure to keep swatches so that when I went shopping for fur, I wouldn't have to bring the whole naked doll. So, the next step in my process was patterning the doll by covering it in saran wrap and duct tape. I marked where I wanted the seams to be in a Sharpie and then cut it all off the doll. This was so I don't have to use any more fur than I 100% need to use. A couple of days later, my brother and I took a trip to the fabric store to look for fur for the body of the doll. We didn't have any luck finding the correct combination of texture and color, so we ended up buying some white fur along with some blue and purple dye to custom make the color. And after briefly exploring my career as a potion maker, I had a batch of wet but correctly colored fur. Once the fur had dried completely, I traced my patterns onto the back of the fur and cut it out. I only filmed the tracing part because I figured the rest was pretty self-explanatory. Once everything was cut out, I started pinning the pattern pieces together and started sewing. This was where I started hating this project. It was infuriating. Nothing stayed together in the way I wanted to, and as you'll soon see, I got so angry that I had to stop filming because I was too frustrated to stay still and in frame. The rest of the sewing went something like this. After the sewing was completed, I had to make the yarn hair, and I obviously didn't film it. Just unweave the yarn and glue the ends of it to a plastic bag and dry it. You'll have some nice hair strips you can glue on and sew over to make the seam clean. And so I looked upon my abomination. I pondered over the weeks I'd spent on this project. The pain, the suffering. For a face in my eyes, it looked like this. And here she is, all finished. Thank you so much for watching all the way through the video. Jokes aside, I had a good amount of fun with this project. While the end was super frustrating, I'm proud of myself that I didn't give up, like I desperately wanted to, and push through to the end. If I were to attempt to make another art doll like this, I would make these changes. 1. Don't put a time limit on it. That made some of my work pretty sloppy and made me really hate working on it in the end. 2. Get some stronger glue because there were just so many clips that I had to remove because the head or hooves fell off. I probably forgot some, honestly. 3. This kind of has to do with the glue as well, but not wrap the body so thick, because I was so focused on making the body stable and giving it the ability to stand that I forgot how much bulk the fur would add. So, am I happy with the end result? I'm happy that it's not in my house anymore.